Before you begin, this story is a journey into darkness, where fear is not just a reaction, but a part of you, lurking, waiting to consume you. Escape is an illusion. The voices, the figures, are not mere imagination. Once you step in, there's no turning back. The nightmare has already begun. There is no waking up. Maya sat on her apartment's worn couch, her eyes drifting to the text message she had received earlier that morning. It was from an unfamiliar number. "We've been watching you for a while now, Maya. You've been invited to an exclusive experience. All you need to do is show up. You'll understand soon enough. E." At first, she thought it was a prank, a twisted joke from a friend, or maybe a scam. But there was something in the way the message was worded, something that made her feel uneasy. The sender didn't use a name. The message itself felt too intentional, too calculated. Maya had been living in the city for almost 3 years now, alone. A college graduate, working a 9-to-5 job she didn't care much for, scrolling through social media feeds at night, and occasionally meeting with a few friends for drinks. It wasn't a bad life, but it wasn't exactly thrilling either. There were days when she thought about moving out, doing something different, anything really. She looked at the message again. No number, no contact details, just an address. "Experience awaits, 1887 Marlowe Street. Arrive by midnight. Don't be late." Maya hesitated. She didn't recognize the street, but it wasn't far from her apartment. Just a 15-minute drive. The kind of place you wouldn't even notice unless you were looking for it. It didn't seem to scream danger, but the feeling in the pit of her stomach told her otherwise. She glanced at the clock. 10:45 p.m. A wave of anxiety hit her. What if this was some sort of sick joke? Or worse, what if it wasn't? She could ignore it, block the number, go to bed. That would be the smart choice. But the curiosity gnawed at her, eating away at her resolve. She grabbed her jacket and phone, standing up slowly. "You won't know unless you go," she muttered to herself, her voice barely a whisper against the silence of her apartment. The streets were empty as she drove, the glow of streetlights casting long, ominous shadows across the road. Her mind raced, trying to calm the rapid beat of her heart. The streets seemed quieter than usual, unnervingly so. The hum of the city had faded, replaced by a heavy stillness that made Maya's grip on the steering wheel tighten. As she approached Marlowe Street, a cold shiver ran down her spine. The area looked abandoned. Old buildings lined the street, their windows dark. The streetlights flickered, casting erratic beams that barely illuminated the path ahead. 1887 Marlowe Street. The house stood at the end of the road, dark and foreboding, its facade battered by years of neglect. The air felt heavy, thick with something that felt wrong. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she parked her car, staring at the house. No lights, no movement, just silence. For a moment, she considered leaving. She could turn around and go home, but something kept her in place. The curiosity, the pull, the sense that she was already too far gone to back out now. She exited the car, her footsteps echoing against the empty street as she approached the door. The old wood creaked under her touch when she knocked. Once, twice. Then the door slowly opened, but no one was there to greet her. Inside, the darkness swallowed her, the air colder than it should be for a late summer night. The house smelled old, musty, as though it hadn't been touched in years. A voice broke the silence. It was soft, almost a whisper, but unmistakable. "Welcome, Maya. We've been waiting for you." Her heart stopped. It wasn't just any voice. It was the voice of the sender of the message, the person who had called her here. The voice echoed in the empty space, as though it came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, the door slammed shut behind her. Darkness. The only sound was the rapid pounding of her heart. And the voice. "Don't be afraid. You're safe here. For now." Maya froze, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Maya's heart raced, her breath shallow as she stood frozen in the dark hallway. The door had slammed shut behind her with an unnerving finality. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the distant hum of a flickering light overhead. The chill in the air settled around her like a heavy fog, suffocating and cold. She stood still, listening, but all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. The voice, soft but unmistakable, still echoed in her mind. "Welcome, Maya. We've been waiting for you." She shuddered, shaking her head as if trying to dismiss the feeling that someone was watching her. The hallway stretched out before her, the edges of the dark, uninviting doors blurring in the dim light. The shadows seemed to shift, tugging at her, urging her to move. Maya took a hesitant step forward, her hand brushing the wall, her fingers grazing against something smooth and cold. It was the door, closed, like the others. She pushed it open, and a cold draft hit her face, carrying a stale, metallic odor. The room beyond was dark, the kind of darkness that made her feel like the air itself had weight. It felt wrong. Every instinct in her screamed to leave, but her legs moved on their own, dragging her further inside. She stepped across the threshold, the door creaking shut behind her, and the world seemed to close in. The space was empty, except for a single antique mirror leaning against the far wall. It was cracked, spiderweb fractures split in the surface, but it reflected only shadows. No details, no light. Maya took a step toward it, her reflection staring back at her. But something was off. It wasn't her face. The person in the mirror was smiling, a smile that was not hers. Her pulse quickened. "Who are you?" she whispered to the mirror. But before she could step back, a soft, unmistakable whisper reached her ears, faint but clear. "They're watching. You're not alone." Maya spun around, heart hammering in her chest, but the room was still empty, the air thick with the scent of decay. The shadows pressed against her, closing in like a living thing. Then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out. "We hope you're comfortable. The others will join you soon." Maya's stomach twisted. The others. A sudden noise, a creak, came from the far end of the room. She whirled, her breath caught in her throat. The door she'd entered from was now ajar, a thin sliver of light cutting through the dark. But it didn't feel like an escape. It felt like an invitation. Panic surged. She bolted for the door, but before she could reach it, it slammed shut on its own, trapping her inside. The shadows were alive now. They shifted, twisted, and crawled across the walls, their movements erratic, frantic. Maya backed away, her eyes darting to the mirror, to the door, desperate for a way out. And then she heard it, a soft, raspy breath, right behind her. Her heart stopped. She spun around, but there was nothing there, just the darkness closing in. A low voice, impossibly close, whispered in her ear, "You're not leaving, Maya. Not yet. The walls seemed to shift, the drawings on them growing more vivid, more grotesque. Her pulse raced as the whispers turned into laughter, low, chilling, echoing from every direction. The door remained closed. The air was suffocating. The mirror, her reflection, wasn't hers anymore. And somewhere, in the depths of the house, something else was waiting. The lights flickered once, twice, and then nothing. It was completely dark. Maya stood frozen in the suffocating darkness. Her breath came in shallow gasps, the silence pressing down on her, thick and oppressive. Her phone screen flickered in the dark, casting a dim light across the room. The cracked walls and the shattered mirror caught her eye again. But something was wrong. The reflection was wrong. The smile in the mirror stretched unnaturally wide and jagged. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was as though the mirror was pulling something out of her. A feeling of being watched, like eyes in the dark. She spun around, her body trembling, searching for any escape. Was she alone? Suddenly the floor creaked beneath her. It wasn't just a random noise. It was the sound of something scratching, something moving underneath the boards. Maya's heart raced. No way. Her eyes locked on the floor as the scratching grew louder. It was coming from beneath the floorboards. There was something down there, something that shouldn't be. Her legs were frozen, her feet unable to move. And then, just as she thought she couldn't take it anymore, the scratching stopped. The silence was unbearable, but it didn't last. With a jolt, the floorboards buckled, splintering. She gasped as something, eyes, appeared from the cracks. First one, then another, and another. Slowly, they crawled up, blinking, unblinking. Red, bloodshot eyes, watching her every move. There were too many. They were everywhere. She stumbled back, her pulse thundering in her ears. The eyes were closing in. The air felt heavier, colder, suffocating. What was happening? Then, through the chaos, a new sound filled the room. A low, guttural growl echoed from above. Maya looked up just in time to see a shadow move across the ceiling. Something was crawling above her, its presence heavy, oppressive. It was coming closer. Her breath hitched as she backed away from the floor, the eyes following her every step, as if the floor itself was alive. She fumbled with her phone again, desperately trying to dial, but it was no use. The eyes on the floor were multiplying, crowding in around her, pulling her attention to them. It's too late. She heard a sound behind her. The door. The door she'd been too afraid to open before was now ajar. Just enough for her to see something standing in the doorway. A figure, tall and unnaturally thin, silhouetted in the dim light. It wasn't human, its limbs too long, too twisted. The figure stepped forward, its face, if it even had one, hidden by shadows. Maya felt her body freeze, unable to move. Her throat closed, the words stuck behind her teeth. It was the same feeling, the feeling of being hunted, trapped. "You're ours now, Maya," a voice whispered in her mind. But it wasn't a voice, it was a presence, cold, alien, and overpowering. The eyes on the floor moved again, crawling up her legs now, slow and deliberate. She wanted to scream, but the words were trapped. Her legs were giving out, her body too heavy to move. And then, the thing in the doorway stepped forward again, its footfalls impossibly slow. "You should have never stayed," it hissed. Maya's breath faltered, her mind slipping into panic. The eyes beneath her feet were closing in. and the thing in the doorway was coming for her. The room darkened, everything swallowing her whole. Maya's breath was the only sound she could hear as she sank to the cold, splintering floor. The eyes, those horrible, bloodshot eyes, were everywhere now, crawling up her body, pressing against her skin like 1,000 tiny pinpricks of heat. Her pulse hammered in her temples, and she wanted to scream, but her voice was trapped in her throat. She couldn't move. Every inch of her was paralyzed by fear. The thing in the doorway was closer now, its features still hidden by the shadows, but its presence was undeniable. It was real, and it was getting closer. The air in the room thickened, suffocating her, as if the walls themselves were closing in. The whispers, soft at first, began to rise, echoing from all sides of the room. "You should never have come here." The voice seemed to come from every corner at once, scraping against her mind. Maya fought to swallow, but her mouth was dry, her throat raw. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for anything, any sign of hope. But there was nothing, only darkness, only those eyes. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. "We are here, Maya. You're already part of us." Suddenly, she felt the floor beneath her shift, as though something was moving beneath it, as though the very foundation of the house was alive. The house wasn't just a house. It was a thing, a living, breathing entity. She had to get out. She had to move. Her legs were shaking, her feet unsteady as she pushed herself up, desperate to escape the weight of the eyes and the suffocating presence closing in around her. With a shaky hand, she reached for the door. It was still ajar, just enough for her to squeeze through. The door seemed to pull away from her, but she didn't care. She had to get away. Just as her fingers brushed the door frame, a scream ripped through her mind. A shrill, piercing sound that made her stomach lurch. The thing in the doorway moved. It stepped forward with a slow, deliberate motion, as if savoring her fear. "Stay with us," the voice whispered, this time in her ear, soft and cold, like a breath against her skin. Maya turned, her heart nearly leaping out of her chest. The thing was right behind her. Its elongated fingers brushed her shoulder, sending a shock of ice through her spine. With a cry, she jerked away, slamming her shoulder into the doorframe. The floor beneath her feet groaned in protest, as if it was trying to pull her down. She had to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The eyes, the whispers, the thing in the doorway, they were all closing in on her. The walls felt like they were breathing, pulsating with an unnatural rhythm. Maya pressed her hands against her ears, trying to block out the sound, but it only made the whispers louder, more overwhelming. "Come closer," the voice cooed. "You can't escape." Her vision blurred, her body trembling violently as panic set in. The thing was getting closer, its fingers stretching toward her, impossibly long, reaching for her throat. The walls trembled again, as if they too were closing in, trapping her in a world that wasn't hers, a world that shouldn't exist. In that moment, Maya realized the truth. She wasn't meant to escape. She was meant to stay, forever. The door slammed shut behind her, and the walls began to close in. Maya's heartbeat echoed in her ears as the door slammed shut behind her, leaving her trapped in the suffocating darkness. She stumbled backward, her eyes wide with terror, searching desperately for an escape. The walls were pressing in closer, their wooden beams groaning under the pressure, as though they were alive, hungry for her. The whispers were louder now, a chorus of voices that seemed to swirl around her, growing more and more frantic. "You can't run, Maya," they hissed in unison. "You belong to us, forever." She tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat, strangled by the weight of the air around her. It felt as if the house itself was suffocating her, every breath harder than the last. Her skin crawled as she felt a cold presence move toward her. She could feel it, like icy fingers brushing against her spine, just out of reach, but always there. Her gaze shot to the walls again. The eyes, those terrible unblinking eyes, were everywhere. They had moved from the floor to the ceiling, now watching her from every angle. They followed her every movement, their gaze unyielding and heavy. "They're waiting for you," the whispers said, "waiting to take you down into the dark." Maya spun around, her breath coming in ragged gasps, but there was no escape. The walls were closing in, their creaking and groaning growing louder, more urgent. The house was alive, and it was hungry. Her legs gave out beneath her, and she fell to her knees, gasping for air. Her mind was spinning. She had to think. She remembered the phone in her pocket. With shaking hands, she pulled it out, but the screen flickered and then went black. No signal, no way out. The whispers became frantic, louder, overlapping in a cacophony of sound. "Help us, Maya. You're one of us now." The walls seemed to pulse with each word, a rhythmic thumping as if the house itself was breathing, a slow, terrifying exhale. Then she heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible sound, scratching. It was coming from the walls, from within the walls. Something was moving inside them, something that didn't belong. She could hear it, its nails scraping against the plaster, its claws trying to claw their way through. Suddenly, the wall beside her cracked open. She froze. Something large, something wrong, began to emerge from the hole. It was shadowy at first, its form a twisting mass of darkness, but then she saw it clearly. A grotesque face, an impossible stretch of skin that didn't belong on a human. Its eyes were bulging, hollowed out like black pits, and its mouth was stretched into a grin that split its face in half. It reached for her, its hand long and gnarled, its fingers like claws. "You cannot escape us," it whispered, its voice like 1,000 dead voices calling from the void. Maya scrambled to her feet, her heart thundering in her chest. She had to move. She had to do something. She ran, her feet pounding against the floor, her body fueled by sheer panic. She reached for the door, but it was locked now, the handle cold and unyielding beneath her trembling fingers. The creature was close, its clawed hand reaching out toward her, dragging itself forward through the wall, its body writhing with every movement. Maya's breath came in short, shallow gasps. She was trapped. The whispers were deafening now. "We are waiting. You belong to the darkness, forever." Her mind raced as the darkness seemed to swallow her whole. And then, just as the creature's claws were about to sink into her skin, the room went silent. For a moment, everything stood still. The walls stopped moving. The eyes ceased their watch. The whispers faded into nothing. Maya stood frozen in the sudden quiet, her body still trembling. She didn't know what was happening, but she didn't care. She needed to escape. And for the first time, she could hear something else in the silence, a faint sound from somewhere far above her. A voice. It was calling her name. Maya stood in the suffocating silence, every nerve in her body screaming at her to flee, but her legs wouldn't move. The darkness hung heavily around her, pressing in, but the most unnerving thing wasn't the shadows, it was the voice. It had come from somewhere above her, soft, distant, but unmistakably clear. Maya. Her heart skipped a beat. The voice wasn't the whispering chorus that had tormented her earlier. This one was calm, almost familiar. It felt like a lifeline, an anchor in the overwhelming chaos that had consumed her. But something in the back of her mind told her not to trust it. She had heard this voice before, somewhere, but she couldn't place where. Maya. The voice called again, louder this time, and the air seemed to shift. The temperature dropped, the chill creeping up her spine. She looked up, scanning the darkness above, her breath catching in her throat. The ceiling seemed to pulse with an unseen energy, the shadows hanging low, thick and suffocating. A cold gust of wind swirled through the room, carrying with it a scent she couldn't place. It smelled faintly of rot, of decay. The voice came again. This time, there was a slight tremor in it. "Come up here, Maya. Come find me." It was like an invitation, a promise that maybe, just maybe, there was an escape. But the voice had the same chilling undertone as the whispers. It felt wrong. Maya's pulse hammered in her ears. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to escape, to not trust what was happening. But something about the voice kept drawing her in. It felt like it was calling her home. Home. She shook her head, her mind reeling. This couldn't be right. She had to get out. There was no time to waste. The creature was still close, its twisted, clawed fingers scraping along the walls, leaving deep, jagged gouges. Her eyes darted to the door again. It was still locked. She could feel it now, a thick, sticky force holding it shut, as if something on the other side was keeping it closed. The voice came again, now louder, almost desperate. "Please, Maya, come to me. You're safe up here." Without thinking, her feet moved toward the stairs. The stairs, which she had once avoided, too dark, too foreboding, were now the only option. Each step creaked as she ascended, the wood groaning beneath her weight, as if the house itself was protesting her decision. The walls around her seemed to shrink, the space closing in. The eyes were still there, watching from every angle, but they didn't feel as close now, as if they were somehow pushed back, waiting for her to reach the top. The air was colder as she climbed. A deep chill wrapped around her, seeping into her bones. The voice, sweet and pleading, led her forward. "Maya, come closer." Her mind was a whirl of confusion. Should she go up? What if it was a trap? But there was nothing left below. The creature was too close, the eyes too numerous. The darkness had been closing in on her for what felt like hours. This voice, this pull, was the only thing offering an escape. She reached the top of the stairs, her hand trembling as she touched the door. It was old, covered in a thick layer of dust, but it was slightly ajar. A sliver of light seeped through, barely enough to see. She pushed it open, and then a sound. A scuffling noise came from inside, followed by the unmistakable sound of breathing. It was labored, ragged, as if someone or something was waiting for her. The air in the room was thick, suffocating as she stepped inside. The light flickered, casting long, strange shadows across the walls. She couldn't see much, just a vague outline of a figure standing in the center of the room. Maya. The voice was softer now, almost like a whisper, but there was something unmistakably wrong in it. It was too close. She turned to face the figure. It wasn't human. The figure before her loomed like a nightmare taking shape, its form shifting in the dim light. It was a silhouette, impossibly tall, with limbs that seemed to bend in unnatural angles. The air grew heavier, thick with dread, as Maya stood frozen, her mind scrambling to make sense of what she was seeing. "Maya," the voice whispered again, this time a soft rasp, as though it was struggling to find its breath. The figure took a slow step forward, its shadow stretching across the floor, distorting into monstrous shapes. Her heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to run, but her legs were rooted to the ground, a cold, invisible force keeping her there. The figure's eyes, black, void-like, glimmered in the low light. It wasn't human. No human could look like that. But it knew her name. It was waiting for her. She swallowed hard, her voice shaky as she forced herself to speak. Who are you?" The figure tilted its head slightly, and the air shifted again, colder than before. Its eyes locked onto hers, a hunger radiating from them that made her skin crawl. "I am you," it rasped, its voice like cracked glass. "I am the one who lives within the shadows, the one who's been waiting for you." Maya's breath hitched. It knew her, but how? The answer clawed at her from the recesses of her mind, but it wasn't ready to be uncovered. It was as if the house was feeding her this knowledge, slowly suffocating her with its truth. The figure's form shifted again, like smoke curling around itself, taking on new shapes, fleeting glimpses of something familiar, something that seemed to taunt her. A fleeting memory flashed in her mind, too quick to catch, too fragmented to understand. The voice. It was the same voice that had been calling her, the one that felt almost comforting, promising safety. But now it felt like a lie. Everything felt wrong. "You can't escape it, Maya," the figure hissed. "The darkness never lets go." The room around her seemed to collapse in on itself. The walls warped, twisting, their surface rippling like water. The once steady light flickered again, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to move on their own. Maya's heart raced as the floor beneath her vibrated with an unnatural force. The whispering started again, louder this time, almost deafening. "It's inside you now, Maya. The darkness has found its place. It's waiting to consume you." Maya stumbled backward, her mind fighting to comprehend what was happening. The figure in front of her wasn't just a being from the house. It was her, or something from her. Her breath grew shallow, panic seizing her chest. The walls felt like they were closing in again. But now, they were more than just wood and plaster. They were alive, pulsating with a heartbeat of their own. Suddenly, the figure lunged forward, its hand reaching out toward her, its long fingers curling into claws. Maya gasped and fell back, but the space seemed to stretch. She was no longer on the stairs, no longer in the room. She was somewhere else, somewhere darker, deeper. The shadows seemed to pull at her, dragging her in, suffocating her. The walls disappeared. The floor vanished beneath her feet. She was falling. And then, blackness. Maya opened her eyes, but there was nothing to see. The darkness enveloped her, thick and all-consuming. It wasn't just a lack of light. This darkness had a weight to it, pressing down on her chest, pulling at her very soul. She tried to scream, but no sound escaped. Her breath came in short, frantic gasps, each one colder than the last. The whispering had returned, louder, more insistent this time, swirling around her like a storm. Maya. It was all around her now, the voice coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was no longer soft or familiar. It was harsh, jagged, as if something was feeding off her fear. Maya, it repeated, and the word was stretched, pulled, like it was being torn apart. Her body tensed as she felt it, something crawling beneath her skin, a presence moving inside her. It was like the darkness had burrowed deep, settling into her bones. She could feel it, twisting, changing her from the inside out. "You are not alone," the voice hissed, echoing from the depths of her mind. It was the figure, the one from the shadows, the one who was her. The realization hit her like a wave. This wasn't just the house. It was her mind, her fears. All of it had been waiting for her. The shadows, the whispers, the presence. It had all been a reflection of what was inside her, buried deep, hidden beneath layers of lies she had told herself. She felt a cold hand, icy and jagged, wrap around her wrist. Her pulse raced, her body trembling as she tried to pull away, but it was like the darkness had a hold of her, anchoring her in place. Her own reflection, twisted and broken, stood before her. "I've been waiting," the figure whispered, its eyes black and endless, consuming everything in their gaze. "You knew I would find you eventually. You knew you couldn't escape me." The floor beneath her began to crack, splitting open like the earth itself was tearing apart. She stumbled back, but there was nowhere to go. The ground gave way, and she was falling again, deeper into the black abyss. As she descended, the darkness shifted. She saw flashes, fragments of memories distorted, warped. A house, an empty room, a mirror. Her own face staring back at her, but it was different. It was wrong. The eyes in the reflection were hollow, black. "You can't outrun yourself, Maya." The voice, her voice, echoed around her as she fell. The deeper she fell, the more the whispers intensified. They became like knives in her mind, sharp and relentless. They clawed at her thoughts, at her sanity. She couldn't escape them. She couldn't escape this her. And then a single word broke through the storm, clear as a bell, cutting through the noise of her mind. "Wake up." The world snapped back into focus, and Maya's eyes shot open, gasping for air, her heart hammering in her chest. She was back in the house. The room was silent still, as if nothing had happened. But she knew better now. She wasn't alone. The darkness was still there, waiting for her. And this time, there would be no escape. I'm still in the house. Or maybe the house is still in me. Sometimes, when the city lights dim and the silence outside my window grows too loud, I feel it, that cold presence, a whisper just at the edge of my hearing, promising to consume everything. I lock the doors, draw the blinds, but it doesn't matter. The cracked mirror in my mind still reflects that unnerving smile, and the eyes beneath the floorboards feel like they're always watching, even now, from somewhere deep within me. The darkness isn't a place I can escape. It's a truth I carry, a quiet hum beneath my skin. I tried to pretend life is normal, that it was just a nightmare, but the memory of that elongated figure and the walls that breathed are too vivid. And I know, with a chilling certainty, that it's just waiting for the right moment to surface again. Maybe it always was. Maybe I was just waiting for it too. A final, silent invitation to a room I can never truly leave.